And we are back with Mr. Sean Waters. I'm Joe Stroud, and yeah, took a little quick break. Had some things to do, but essentially, what we were talking, why this whole thing transpired, is we are getting to the bottom of, kind of where's the truth in all this New Age spirituality, some of these workshops, and the yoga, and the cacao circles, and the full moon ceremonies, and the activations, and some of the culture in Tulum and places like Bali.
And also in wider society, I think.
And wider society as well. The Matrix, we're going to get into kind of East versus West a little bit and kind of how that plays out. And yeah, I think it came up in the first part of this video of just getting to the bottom of like, okay, there's bullshit in some of this New Age spirituality, but there's still gold in there. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so yeah, we've touched on lots of big points so far. But
where do you want to pick up from?
Yeah. So
it just depends, isn't it?
I think, you had touched on in our previous conversation. You had touched on the Bhagavad Gita and maybe the difference in Tantra and yoga. I think we could start off with kind of the duality versus the one.
Oh, yes.
I think would be a good start as it relates to Tantra yoga and the Eastern philosophies.
And religion.
And religion. And I think just my little bit on that is kind of the oneness versus separateness or unity and the ego. And so anyway, we'll kind of go from there. But yeah, I'd love to kind of hear sort of the duality in yoga versus how Tantra says, no, there's not two. There's just, you're already there, you're love.
Well, yoga does say there's only one, non-duality. It does, eventually. So that's the goal of self-realization, is that there is non-duality. You realize yourself as God. Not like, and this is the thing with words, not like you are the God and you can dominate and control the universe, because that's kind of what we see in the West as like a patriarchal God, which is why many people are kind of atheistic, because they don't understand why there'd be so much suffering. They don't understand why there'd be so much pain. They experience stuff that's not good. Say for instance, institutions like the church would let them down in many respects, and then they say, well, fuck this patriarchy, fuck the God, fuck all of this.
You said women specifically.
Huh?
You said for women.
No, anyone.
Anyone.
Even most men go atheistic because they're like, what? Why would I have some kind of kind of man in the sky who's controlling everything? Like, fuck that. I don't believe that. Like, I'm not having it. Science makes more sense. So I think that's what's happening at the moment in society, is that we've got science is the new religion. I think that's the new religion now, and kind of the news and updates, and we're in control, which is fine. It is what it is.
Absolutely.
It's a natural...
And information.
Yeah, and information. And it's a natural response to what is a repressed society, that basically the Christian, Catholic, and there's many different derivatives, but let's just say, Christianity is probably update 2 in the West. Update, I think the first one was like Judaism, that was like the first real religion in the West, and then I think from that, Christianity was like update 2. Christ came along as a Jew and was like, no, we're doing it wrong. This is the way to do it. And then update 3 would be like Islam.
Yep.
So Muhammad came along and was like, we're still doing it wrong. We need... And basically the church and institutions have formed from that, and they've had such an incredible influence on society, like especially Christianity in the West. It's the way we think, morals, values, it's kind of all based off what Christ was doing. So in the West, that doesn't make any sense to us anymore, because we're being kind of
coerced into like science is the new religion and information, and the media conglomerate which is owned by the elites, and it's like a bottleneck of information. And
yes, but yeah, you're right, and it's true. But I've thought about this a lot, that they wouldn't have a reason to pull people out of the really conservative Christian institutional thing if it wasn't pissing people off.
Yeah, if it was working.
Exactly, and it clearly, like the '60s was one of the first real rebellions against the sort of conservative Christian narrative. Because as the US as a country, if we're so Christian and whatever, why would they go and bomb Vietnam? It doesn't make any sense. So they started to see kind of like, hang on a minute, we've got like government, church, and then like dad's beating me up because I've masturbated when I'm like 12. All this repression. Don't touch yourself. You've got to be a virgin. You've got to do this. Got to do that. Fucking, you're gonna go to hell. All this like pressure. And effectively, they've took Jesus as the perfect archetype of a human, and instead of really understanding what Jesus did to become into his state of being, they've just taken the surface level traits of that guy and then tried to force it. So they've gone, right, Jesus doesn't have sex.
Yeah.
So we should all not have sex until we're married because it's not sacred. And there's many other things that they've tried. Be kind to everyone. Like, don't do this, don't do that, and it's become like a law. But Jesus didn't give a fuck about the law. He didn't care about government. He didn't care about anything. He became enlightened by knowing himself, knowing his own heart. And when you get to that point, you can only act the way he did. But you can't transfer that to somebody else through teaching them how to do it. Every individual has to go on the same path he did of self-discovery and discovering the world. And that's why I think society is so fucked. Because we're taking an archetype and then forcing it on everyone else. You must do this. But why? I don't feel like doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's because our parents said we should, and when their grandparents said we should, and they did it, and this kept them on a path, and because but then why did who,
Right.
and
because it's safe. A lot of these things are good for control.
It's security, it's safety, it's control, and it's interesting. A lot of Christianity, modern Christianity, was formed through Constantine the Great.
Yes.
And he was like a polytheist, I think, many gods, and then on his deathbed said he was a Christian, or made some final changes to like basically the revisions that became the Bible as we know it today.
Yep.
And that's fucked. And then, you just see, like, it's just like, what?
Yeah.
If you look into the history of it, and then also like the number of people who were burned at the stake because they didn't follow the church, or all the books that were burned,
Right.
and things that were wars in the name of
Right.
this religion that's supposed to
Right.
be all righteousness, and the Crusades, and like, let's go take back the Holy Land. It's like, what? It's like, let's kill people in the name of this good positive thing that's all about love anyway.
Yeah, yep.
Love your neighbor as yourself, or love your enemy as yourself. It's just a total contradiction.
That's the funny thing, like in like 900 AD, 900 years after Christ, Muhammad appeared, a very devotional, similar to Jesus, devotional being. That Jesus is in the Quran as well as one of the prophets. He's not the focus point.
Yep.
He's one of many, and I kind of, that's what I like about the Quran. But Christianity doesn't like that. No, Jesus is the only one. It's kind of like, what?
And then Judaism is also that for Christianity. Like,
Yes.
no, Jesus wasn't it. It was Moses, right?
I think it
was Moses.
I think Abraham.
Abraham. That's right.
Yeah.
It's Abraham.
So,
yeah.
but anyway, so Muhammad come along with like update 3, like whoa, we're doing this wrong. 900 years since Christ, and then he was bringing everyone back with his revelation, to love Allah and much more. Islam is much more kind of concerned with nature. Like if you go into a mosque, it's everything's based on nature. All of like the kind of art in there, and kind of everything is designed to be a beautiful reflection of nature, and it's meant to be a space where you can go down and bow down with humility to like the one, what. But it just doesn't seem to be possible for you to, like you've had Jesus, you've had Muhammad, you've had Buddha, you've had all these people come through, and it's like no matter how much they try and say, like, just individually you have to seek out enlightenment. Humans just cannot do it, and we just continue to form these kind of institutional structures. Like, we just can't help it.
And then I think another one to highlight here, and it's related to the technology and information, is capitalism. And like I love capitalism, but it's a double-edged sword. Like, I don't think it's the end-all be-all. I think it's helped us progress to new heights that was not be possible in totally socialistic or communism type of scenario. It's kind of hard to find, another model that works, and that's a whole nother conversation in and of itself. But it's almost like, so once the elite of the West essentially used religion and then technology, because capitalism was built off the back of technology and information, it's almost like these multinational corporations are more powerful than any country, considering, I worked at Hewlett-Packard, my first job out of college. They're in 170 countries. 170 countries. That's an empire. That's a fucking empire. And like, that just gets you thinking. And then now just think of Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon, and whoever else. Like, it's just they've got unwielded power. And even in the U.S., corporations are treated like a private citizen essentially. If you get the right incorporation, LLC, or I'm not even. And then you fast forward to, you got the vaccine companies who have, in the 80s, they were absolved of any liability on any, like, the vaccine manufacturers, which is wild to think about. And it's only possible in the capitalistic, legalistic, technological era that we're in.
Do you think it's that, or do you think that there's been just as much corruption since forever anyway, because that's what humans do when they're opportunistic? True.
Yeah.
Like, can we really...
I think hierarchies exist in nature.
Right.
This is the dominance hierarchy. I mean, if you look in, kind of the masculine, feminine, or the relationship, with that, there's kind of a dominant, submissive, the yin and yang polarity going on there.
And do you think there still is in...
Absolutely.
Right.
I think people are ignoring their primal nature, and this goes right in line with what I do as a dating coach for men, helping them take action off of what they want. It's so simple. But they've got so much shit in their head of toxic masculinity or a fear of being being rejected. But men, you get power from being rejected. If you're hunting 1,000 years ago and you try to kill an animal to eat and you miss, well, that's a rejection. You tried and you didn't get it. And men's value rides on performance, and that's where a lot of our value is extracted. But let's say I made a few posts a while back on what is being alpha, what is dominance, like what is it? Because there was a time when someone told me, they were joking around, but they're like, Joe, I'm the alpha here. And I was just like, okay, this is in college, kind of immature, but like kind of triggered by it. But the thing is, the gold in it though is, I think what I put in my post was, some people are born with gifts and advantages. You call it a competitive advantage, or they earned it. And if you don't think they're going to use that competitive advantage when the opportunity is there, whether that's their dream woman and there's competition, there's other men in the room, other women who want you, and there's this whole game going on, and you all want to say, oh, dating shouldn't be a game. Well, guess what? Life is a fucking game, and dating is an extension of that. Getting food is a game. You got to play the game to win, and you're going to play to your strengths to win the game and to get what you want, to have the idealistic life. And, some of it's earned, but it's like, does a cheetah eat a gazelle in Africa every single day on planet Earth? Yes. Why would he not use his speed and his teeth and his agility and skills to go get a kill, right? So why would we be any different? And even on the topic of food, like on that matter, it's like, we could gather hundreds of different types of foods and seeds and fruits and all this, and then even then take a while to digest, but we got to eat so much of it or we can kill one animal and everyone can eat in the village. The whole family can eat. We can use every part of that animal. And not to mention, it's a superfood. That animal ate all those plants and digested it into one thing so we can eat it and go from there. But, you're asking about dominance. Yeah, I definitely feel like it's there. And I think this is, but then there's the egoic side of dominance. It can be abused, and this is part of the shadow masculine. I was talking with some friends. There's the dark and light masculine, and there's the dark and light feminine. And the light masculine is like the noble white knight, the good deeds, the hero, the king, the good king, the loving, generous king to give to everyone. And then the dark masculine is the manipulator, the tyrant, or just the fucking dominant, like, I'm going to go after what I want, whether that's these resources over here so that, I can prosper, or I want this woman. Like, I don't care if she has something going on with another guy. Like, that's kind of not my problem. I can, on the light masculine, I can hold space for her and be woo and be good for her, or I'm still going to have this primal nature of I want you and I'm going to have you and I'm going to take it. And this is kind of a whole can of worms right here. But on the flip side, women, they want, or the dark masculine can also be like the killer instinct. Nobody wants a murderer necessarily. No one wants violence to happen, but the women feel safe around a man who could kill or who could step in and give justice when it needs to be served. And so that dominance hierarchy, in the dark masculine, when kind of the dark pole, again, this is back to the duality of the light and the dark. It's not good or bad. It's just they are, and they both exist, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. And then on the feminine side, the light feminine can be kind of the innocent or the bubbly and just ooh, oh my gosh, and just kind of the divine feminine oracle, like the wisdom side of it. And then the dark feminine can be maybe the seductress, the woman who really knows how to lure in a man. I've seen some of this play out, and I didn't even know what was going on. They know how to work a man into his blind spots and weak spots, or even in the more another shadow part is the victim consciousness. It comes from the feminine archetype of this always happens to me, poor me. I've always been taken advantage of. All my exes are narcissists, and I was abused, and that becomes the story of their life, rather than take responsibility for what showed up for them. And this isn't even about that necessarily. I'm just giving an example of these archetypes that can show up. But there's, a man can fall into a shadow feminine type of role too. We can all show up on different places of the map. But it's very interesting, all these dualities and how they show up, and and kind of where this is all going. But I think, there's all of that, and some of the themes that I think have come up in this conversation have been, you can be the player, whichever archetype you want to play. You can choose whichever path or method. It doesn't really matter. You can just pick one, whether that's yoga, lifting weights, psychedelics, travel, making lots of money. None of it matters, because you can get some kind of fulfillment from that. Or another way I like to look at it is it's all software. You can go deep into one and get what you need, but that's not the end goal. You can kind of bring it back and work on maintenance. Or also, I like this idea of, expanding and contracting, which I think expansion on some level is kind of going out into the chaos, out into the world, out into the abyss. And then contract, you kind of come home. You come back to the grounding, which could be more of a masculine energy, and the chaos and the expansion could be maybe more in the feminine. That's just, I don't know, something that has come up for me even like in the last day or two. I'm curious. Let's see. Yeah, how do you see some of these tools and paths, making sense in your life, and kind of where the world is going, and maybe, our part to play in all of this? Like, okay, we've outlined some of the stuff. Now what? Or what should listeners and viewers do or how can they apply some of these principles and tools and go out and win or make some change out there?
There's probably better people out there to help people like yourself do that kind of thing. Obviously, my audience probably isn't, the dating audience, the dating arena, people looking to, find women or find matches or whatever. But I think if people can learn how to relax
and slow down.
Yeah. I think when we relax, we can let existence happen to us. And I don't think, I personally, in my experience, I've been doing a lot of fighting, like I said, with the yoga, with biohacking, seeking answers. There's, that's what the Western world is really built on. It's what the whole world's built on at the moment, is a constant need for something else. I think a lot of the problems in society are because we aren't aware of what we are and what we have and how good it is just to be human and just to be alive. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of the issues that we think exist don't. And I think it's because humans are stressed and programmed and confused, and societies and religion does a really good job of confusing you. And I think morality is like a bit of a torture device. I don't think
the good and bad, the good or evil of, yeah. I've heard one map described as like that's all 3D, and like 5D is kind of beyond all that. Things aren't good or bad, they just are.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
I also think that the 5D thing as well, a lot of the vocabulary used in spirituality,
Yep.
It's all very wordy. If you go to India, all of the ancient teachings are written in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is like a very, very strange language to learn if you've been brought up on English, which we have. Like for instance, the goddess Kali means time, means the goddess Kali in her like female form. Mm-hmm. It also means black, and I believe it also means death. So imagine if you had a word, imagine if the word black to us also meant God and time and like the breath, mm-hmm. all in one word. It would naturally form your brain and your way of seeing life differently than if you were brought up with just black is black, which is what we have. So just the English language alone is a
very limiting.
It's very limiting. It's a commercial language. It was actually French was the preferred language 200 years ago, and that's what everybody wanted to speak. It's why the French are always really angry these days, because they wish their language, and they're probably right. It's a beautiful language, but it's a lot more emotional, a lot more passionate, and I think that's why they get pissed off. They're like, why is the whole world just, so focused on fucking business? Well, it's because the English is a business language. It's a market language, and it was better for trade and contracts. It's more like specific. So if you form the whole of modern society, which is what's happening now with the spread of Western culture all over the world through the internet, if that's all based on everyone jumping up to English, which is one of the shittiest languages, apart from humour. It's very good for jokes, I have to say. We're very good for jokes and writing rock and roll. That's the other two things I think we're really good at. But in terms of spirituality, speaking in Western terms or with the English language, I've found tends to lead a lot of people down a psychologized yoga path. It's this blend of psychology, trauma, all that trauma speak, psychology speak with yoga.
Yeah.
And actually, you can't extract yoga out. Yeah, you can't extract yoga out of Hinduism because it's one whole thing. The language, the perspective, you can't take yoga out and mix it with Western psychology, and that's what's happening everywhere. And so it creates victimization because psychology encourages that kind of think with the English language, but they also recommend doing yoga to help from it. But yoga is about transcending the ego, so there is no victim. The body in yoga doesn't matter. You are consciousness. The idea is to realize yourself as consciousness, as beyond the body. So fuck the body, forget about the body. But you can't do that when you're identifying with your traumas, which is what psychology does. So the very act of doing yoga and speaking in psychology terms is complete contradiction. And it's why people are in loops. And they're making everybody else, you need to own my trauma, and I need to do the work.
When you say speaking in psychology terms, you mean just some of these terms and buzzwords?
Well, there's buzzwords, but there's also just a general psychologization of spirituality going on everywhere.
Yeah, I've love this bit you brought up. I see a lot of this in, I think here. Okay, trauma, narcissism. What's another one? Gaslighting.
Yep.
These are words that have been overused and so thrown around they have completely lost their meaning.
Doing the inner work.
Inner work. Polarity is another one. There's a couple more I'm missing off the top of my head, but narcissism and trauma and healing. Like, what the fuck does that even mean anymore? Like, I know what it means. Like, honestly, but it's like it's a bit much. It's like, I say processing, expressing. A lot of this stuff is just unresolved emotion that is stuck, repressed. Something happened. It's like, look, just make sense of it.
Well, yoga says that it's identification. That's the only thing. So there's no. Every animal, every being, every life form experiences the polarity of life. Suffering, drought, rain, sun. It's just a part of existing in this universe, is to experience like rough with the good. It, like you said, there's just universal truths. There's light, there's dark, there's suffering, whatever. Yoga's trying to get people to yoga, which means union, to physically unite your body with yourself as consciousness, as the third eye, as the watcher, rather than the body or the mind. Psychology is trying to adjust the mind to fit back into society, because it's based upon people not behaving correct under a moral compass in society. So you can't. India doesn't believe, like the Hindus come from the Indus Valley. That's why they're called Indus. That's where they're from. There wasn't any society there when they came up with all of their texts. It didn't exist. So if you're living in California or New York or Texas or London or wherever, like, and you're trying to use yoga to better yourself, fine, but it's not what it's about. And you can't really mix the two. That would be my statement. I know a lot of people aren't going to like this, but I don't care. It's the truth. And Tantra goes one beyond yoga and says, you don't even need to fight, you just need to be aware. Just be aware. Just, that's it, and it can be instant. And Tantra came before Hinduism. There shouldn't even be an ism on the end of Hinduism. When you say I'm a Hindu, you're basically saying I am Indus Valley. I am a person from the Indus Valley. But even that, in true yoga, there's no identification. You are not that either. You're not the body. You're an infinite consciousness. That's the realization. So it's funny because everyone goes to festivals, and everyone finds that truth when they take a load of drugs. They shoot up to that high chakra, and they're like, oh my God, we're all one, we're all love. There's only that emotion, and then a couple of days later, we're back down, and most of the time feeling like shit. The practice of yoga is to keep you permanently in that understanding and that perspective, but it doesn't fit with society. You can't do that and then go and work in a job. I mean, you can, but it's going to be like, why am I even doing this?
Yeah.
You're not going to need
different frequencies. You're a high vibration, low vibration, and
well, not even low or high. You'll be so fulfilled, you won't need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Your cup is full, so you don't. and it will just be like ridiculous. You just would be like, what? For what? Why do I need a 50k job? Why do I need what am I going to buy that could replace how I'm feeling?
Yeah, I have one friend in particular who I've just seen him climb the corporate ladder, and it's like he talks about is money, all he cares about himself, and it was like I kind of stopped really associating with him, but it just he got the next job with a higher pay, and then and then he's like on to the next, and then on the next. He's like, no, I got to get this one. If they don't give me this, I'm not taking it. And he like leverages stuff, and he'll tell recruiters like, don't call me back if you can't offer me this. Like I'll don't waste my time. Like hold them to the fire and play ball, and that's great. But it's this perpetual. And he got a nice sports car, and it's like I just see the emptiness. I see right through it in it, but I like what you said about the whole psychology bit is kind of opening up a new loop for me, and also like I think Terrence McKenna kind of highlighted this for me of like language is so limiting on the human experience and consciousness and what it actually is. And this is why when I've had certain experiences, I can't describe it to someone, whether it's a psychedelic or an experience, a food. You're just like, oh, it was just so, like if someone has never tried the taste of chocolate before, how are you going to tell them what chocolate is? You can't.
Right.
It can't be done. There are no words to do it. It's a felt experience. It's experiential.
That's literally why no matter how Christian you are, you will never be like Christ, because every single Christian needs to go through that.
Check the box, go to church.
Well, yeah, they do all that, but then they don't feel. I mean, okay, so
there's the community aspect. There are good principles in Christianity for sure.
There's also
this ego state of, well, we're better, we're more pure, we're gonna go to heaven, and those poor souls over there, they're not gonna make it.
Well, yes, and there's some Christians like say,
and even like shaming and like dogmatic stuff.
Yes, It doesn't. It just means that going to church doesn't automatically. I don't think.
Of course not.
Automatically kind of transform you, but there are some very, very devoted, like Francis of Assisi, for example. He was 100% an embodiment of, Christ consciousness, because he loved. That's the key thing, and tantra really is another word, but it's the path of love rather than the path of fight. It's the path of acceptance. It's the path of yes. And so many people aren't identifying themselves as tantrics, but tantra, they would be tantrics, if that makes sense.
Interesting. No, it is.
Like Zen Buddhism, for example, just going with the flow.
Allowing.
Very tantric, but it's from a different region, it has a different name, but they're saying the same shit. Go with the being, go with the existence. Jesus, for example, just with and accepts, like they put him on a cross and he still didn't refuse. Like at any point he could have fled, but he said yes. There was yes. There was acceptance all the way through. I mean, there's no greater act of stoicism than what he did. We don't need to be tough to be tough. You know what I mean? If you can accept, that's the ultimate strength. And it's the ego that's constantly, no.
Even like when you get triggered in a conversation, this is actually something that comes up for me a lot. If I disagree with someone, it's like tough for me to like stick in that, and like, so I definitely have developed this non-reactive sense, which I think is good. It's this acceptance of, instead of, oh, I'm going to become angry at this, it's, whoa, I'm aware that I'm becoming angry.
Yes.
And I'm, this is a reaction to this, and I'm not going to play into their game of, they just want me to respond so that they can kind of feel right. It's this need to be right is huge. And during the pandemic, one of my good closest friends, it's almost like I couldn't talk to him for a while because we both really wanted to be right, and it was so triggering. And like, but even recently with other people, it's just sometimes if you can also trigger them more by yeah, and just, or not responding, because You have the power to choose to write a new script all the time or choose to not react. Like, yes, okay, I can hold space for you. I can witness you and mirror you and hold you accountable. Like, whatever you need, I'm here for you, bud. Like, I love you. But also, it's just like, I'm not going to play your game. I'm not coming to your workshop. I'm not going to get sucked into your funnel, to your vortex. I'm going to keep my center. And this is at the core of a lot of this, is like keeping your center, whether it's the spirituality stuff, the new age, or like, you can go to the workshops, you can go to yoga, pick a path, but get what you need and apply it back into the real world, into this physical reality. If you want to have a physical reality that's, feels fulfilled, take it back into the real world and do it, or keep 10% of all these modalities running as a software program in the background once you've gone deep on some of it. But it's all, let's see. Lost my train of thought on some of that. Being non-reactive of just like, no, I'm not going to play this game and play into someone else's thing, or even what governments are saying. Same thing with government or religion, the media. It's like, no, I'm keeping my sovereignty, I'm keeping my center, and I can notice what's going on for you, and I accept it as it is. It's not good or bad. It's just, I hope, maybe I can say a couple things that'll help them see themselves, and then they can heal themselves, because they are the doctor, the guru, the God, the whatever they need to be for themselves. And that's like the teacher becomes the student, and the student can become the teacher. And yeah, like this non-reactivity as well, choosing your power, and the kind of, to finish this loop, is I can choose to react to that person's reaction or that trigger or this government thing, and I can get into that program and that conditioning on some level, or I can choose how my day is still going to be and maintain my sovereignty and my power and still play the game. I would love to hear, I think, so you broke down what Tantra is in just like a clear, concise way. I think there's a way, I heard you say previously, the yoga, like it's the journey to the self through blah, 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 blah. Can you run through in like a clear, concise statement? I don't know, I'm not sure if you've said it in this conversation yet. Like yesterday at the lake, at the lagoon, you said it, and I was like, that.
The difference?
Yes. The clear-cut difference, Tantra and yoga.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what I said, but I think it's acceptance.
Yeah.
I think it's Tantra says yes.
Acceptance versus the fight. And so, I guess it's simply put right there. I think, one other thing to highlight is...
I don't think also that anything I've said in this podcast, even, like, not even a grain on people just going and studying it themselves and exploring it. Hopefully I can just be like an invitation or a door to that, to go in and studying it and looking into what it is. Even yourself, I know you said you're going to go to Asia and you're going to go to India, and there's no way I can convey it, and that's kind of the point of Tantra, is that Tantra really means technique, method. So the key text in Tantra is the Vigyan Bhairava. And that is, it's basically the goddess Devi sat on the lap, it's an intimate position, with Shiva, who's the god archetype, and she asks him on behalf of humanity how to transcend or to self-realize, and she asks him questions, and he only responds with techniques. That's the key. He never responds with philosophy, only with technique. And you'll see if you read that document, it's ancient, this document. That text, and it's basically just technique driven. So with Tantra, nothing anyone can say. Clearly, like Buddha was a tantric. He didn't say he was, but he's aligned with the same philosophy. Lao Tzu, Christ. There's many, and you don't have to become Buddha or Christ or whatever. That's not even the point either. We don't need to kind of see. You just gotta know yourself and what you are. And that's the benefit of Tantra, it's to learn to relax and use these techniques to center yourself. That was the key word. Most people don't even know what their center is and what it even feels like. So just spending some time with your center will help you with anything that you want to do in this world, and hopefully, make you feel better. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we want, isn't it?
Yeah. That's good stuff. I think one thing that's come up for me is just to reaffirm, like, we are not your guru. We don't take it from us. Run your own experiments. Take everything we've said with a grain of salt. We are not these ascended masters who've arrived, and we're two human beings with egos and blind spots and primal desires and tendencies. And so it's like, who the fuck are we to tell you? We're just sharing an experience that we've had, and run your own experiments. See what works for you. Do
it all.
Do it all.
Yeah.
Try it all.
Try it all.
Yeah, and
there's no wrong step. There is no mistake. Just go for it. Try yoga. Try the fucking whole thing. Do it. Why not?
Yeah, and if my one prescription, if I was to give one, is just travel. Get out of your bubble, I think, and get out of your environment. Before I left on this trip to come to Tulum, something hit me of like, your local environment is its own program in and of itself. Whether it's the city, there's this mono-speak of a lot of places on earth where there's this lingo, which is a program, and it gets people all in on this program. But that's a smaller locality of them. But then there's like the country aspect. There's the macro version of that program, which carries a different energy, and it keeps you like, in this limited sight area. And so there's just certain places on earth where this is more opened up, and things feel lighter or slower. And so, find your tribe and, go be around people with good energy who carry pieces of the puzzle, like Sean here. That's how it was for me. That's kind of what got this idea started to record this. But I feel like we're at, a bit of a saturation point and kind of what we wanted to, touch at today. Any other thing you want to add to what we've done or what we've said?
No, I think that's it. I think that's good.
Yeah. Well, very well. Very powerful conversation, Sean, and I'd love to do this again. And it's crazy, just a little synchronicity. He just came from Thailand, and I'm about to go to Thailand. We were both here in Tulum for a very short bit, just a few weeks, really. And I just came from South America, primarily Argentina, and I've been to Colombia too, but he's about to go to Colombia and probably Argentina as well. And it's like, we can't make this stuff up. I just saw him on the street, and I was riding a scooter trying to go get coffee. He was on his way to get coffee. So I was like, what? And this is the magic of Tulum. And
life, I think, in general.
And life too. Like, there are no coincidences.
No.
Zero.
And that's really what Tantra allows for. It just says, just relax, and the people that you need will come. Everything will happen as it should. You don't need to fight against anything. Yeah. I think a big central theme in Tulum is surrender and trust, and just, let things happen. And I'm being invited into deeper and deeper levels of that. And, the universe has your back. Definitely, mate.
For, in the case of, opportunities and business and clients, certain clients have landed and opportunities have landed at like the most critical times when it could have come through and just changed things. It's almost like the universe is just putting out stepping stones for me, and it just confirms the path that I'm on. And and it's just like, no path is better than the other. No sense of security is going to make you better than anybody or safer, because a lot of our fear of that, from the security, like whatever the security is protecting you from, it's just fear of something bad going to happen. And our fear is this old program that's prehistoric. That's been said that we've got prehistoric, like caveman level emotions with middle-aged medieval institutions and godlike technology. This fear thing, we still feel like we're about to get eaten by a tiger. And lots of people run around fearing they're going to get fired or their partner's going to leave them. It's like, okay, well, you'll figure it out. Or, fear of running out of money. It's like, well, what happens if you run out of money? Well, you could die. You might not be able to eat. You might be able to like have a roof over your head. And it's like, okay, well, go get a job as a barista or sell fruit, you know, on the side of the road. Or you'll figure out something. Buy a bunch of surfboards, rent them, or scooters, whatever. But you will figure it out. You'll, you know, if you trust yourself, you know, trust. This is where you can get a lot of power in the surrender. Is trust that everything in your life has led you up to this point right now, that you have the tools to take the right action for what you need, and that you can trust your instincts in the moment.
Yeah, it.
Cool. Well, it's been a pleasure, and yeah, this will be the first of many. I can feel it.
Yeah, man.
So, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time.